I'm Rob.
And I'm Jenny.
And we're here to announce the next round of the Tropical Readathon.
Yep, so it's round 5 of our readathon, round 3 of our month-long version.
Yep, and it'll be taking part the whole month of August. So starting August 1st, 2021 in your own time zone.
Yeah.
It's July 4th right now, so you might hear explosions even though it's 4 in the morning.
Yeah, so technically July 5th.
Yes.
People still going at it. Okay, so if you've done this before, it's a team-based readathon, and we used to have 5 teams, but this time we're having 6.
Yeah, so we had a question on Twitter if people want to break up the science fiction fantasy team into 2 teams, and people seem to really like that idea, so we now have 6 teams, and the teams are
Team Romance,
Team Science Fiction,
Team Fantasy,
Team Mystery Horror Thriller,
Team Contemporary Literary Historical Fiction,
and Team Nonfiction Poetry.
Yep, so how you choose your team is up to you. Usually people choose the genre that they read the most, but you can choose whatever you want.
Yeah, so the team doesn't really affect much of your TBR. You can read whatever books you want from whatever genres. Really, it's just that each team has 2 team-specific challenges, and it's kind of those 2 things that are really the team-specific thing. So again, even for those 2 challenges, you can read from whatever genres you want as long as you hit those tropes.
Yeah, so just the challenge prompts is the only thing that changes based on whatever team you choose.
Yep.
Okay, so there are 13 common challenges and the 2 team-based challenges, so that's a total of 15 challenges to complete if you want to round everything out.
And then in addition to that, we have team books. So these are books that anyone can read for extra points. We have 2 per team, though only one of them can count for the extra points.
Yeah, unless you use the other one for another challenge, like a general challenge or team challenge.
So you could read like the new romance book for the points for the team book, but then also read the other one for one of the tropes.
One of the general challenges.
One of the general challenges, yes.
Okay. And so the 2 team books, the reason we have 2 is because one is a new release that people are probably hyped to read, and the other one is an old release to make things more accessible in case you don't have access to the new releases. So these are something that you'll probably find at a library or a used bookstore or can borrow from your friends or something like that. We actually looked up all of the old books in the Chicago public library system to make sure that a place like Chicago has access to these, and they all did. Okay, so common challenges. There again are 13 common challenges. Each common challenge has a trope that you can read, or you can read an alternate.
You can use an alternate prompt.
Yeah, you can use an alternate prompt that's based off of the trope. Okay, you can't double up or triple up on challenges, so you can only read 1 book per challenge, 1 challenge per book. Yeah. Okay, so the first challenge is the absent dead parents trope. So that's to read a book where the main character's parents have either died prior to the book or at the very beginning of the book, or are just completely absent from the book.
And the alternate prompt is to read a book that is published under a pseudonym.
Yeah. The next trope is the time loop trope. So read a book where the main character is stuck in some time loop, like a Groundhog Day situation.
And the alternate prompt is to reread a book you've already read.
Yep. The next trope is found family. So read a book where the characters are kind of connected in a family type dynamic, but they're not blood related.
And the alternate prompt is to do a buddy read or a group read for a book.
Mm-hmm. The next trope is coming of age. So read a book where the main character goes through some process of self-discovery.
And the alternate prompt is to read a book where the protagonist is the same age as you, or give or take.
Yeah. The next trope is food themes. So read a book that involves food in some way. So the main character could be like a chef or own a restaurant or be in some cooking competition or just really love to bake, something like that.
And the alternate prompt is a meaty book, so a book with at least 500 pages.
The next trope is blast from the past. So read a book where the character re-meets someone from their past.
And the alternate prompt is to read a book that was published before the year 2000.
The next trope is mixed media. So read a book that has things like letters or emails or texts, things like that.
And the alternate prompt is to listen to an audiobook or to read an ebook.
Yeah. The next trope is post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic. So read a book that takes place either right before or during or right after an apocalypse.
And the alternate prompt is to read a book with fire on the cover.
The next trope is historical figures. So read a book that features a historical figure in some way. So that could be the main character or some side character.
And the alternate prompt is to read a book published this year, so in 2021.
The next trope, we called it the all happens in one day trope. And it's when the entire book or majority of the book just happens in 24 hours.
And the alternate prompt is to read an entire book in a 24-hour period.
The next trope is the multiple POV trope. So read a book that has multiple points of view.
And the alternate prompt is to read a book with multiple characters of color.
Next trope is new kid in town. So read a book where the main character has just moved to a new place or is totally new in some kind of environment.
And the alternate prompt is to read a genre that's new to you, or that you usually don't read at least.
Yeah. And the last general challenge trope is retelling. So read a book that is a retelling of some other story.
And the alternate prompt is to read a book that has been adapted to TV or movie or something like that.
Okay, so that's it for the general challenges. So we'll talk about the team challenges. So again, there are 2 team-based challenges. These ones don't have an alternate prompt, but
you get more points for them.
Yeah, you get more points, and they're based off of tropes that are usually found in that team's genre. So again, you can read any genre that satisfies it. It's just usually found in the genre of your team. And then again, we said that there's 2 team books, one old, one new. If you want the points for reading the team book, you can only do 1 per team.
Yeah.
But you can use the second one if you really want to read that one as well for another challenge. Okay, so the first team is Team Romance.
And the first team challenge for Team Romance is to read a book with the sports romance trope.
And the second team challenge is to read a book with the second chance romance trope.
The new team book is XOXO by Axio.
And the old team book is The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. The next team is Team Science Fiction.
And the first team challenge is to read a book centered around climate change, so-called climate fiction.
And the second trope is to read a book featuring cryosleep or suspended animation. So that's something like, for example, if the characters are kind of frozen in order to travel in some spaceship for a long period of time in like a type of stasis.
Yeah, isn't that movie with
Jennifer Lawrence
and Chris Pratt?
Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
Passengers. I didn't see it.
I did.
You did? The first team book, the new team book, is A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers.
And the old team book is The Marrow Thieves by Cherie Dimaline. Okay, the next team is Team Fantasy.
And the first team challenge is There Be Dragons. So this is to read a book featuring dragons.
And the second team challenge is to read a book featuring the prophecy trope.
The new team book is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan.
And the old team book is The Extraordinaries by T.J. Klune. The next team is Team Mystery Horror Thriller.
The first team challenge is It Supernatural? And so, so this is to read a book where the events may or may not be paranormal / supernatural. So kind of often, for instance, in a thriller, like maybe you're like, oh, is this some sort of ghost that's haunting them, or is it actually explainable, like some sort of weird thing like that, where you're not sure until the end what's really happening.
Yeah, and the second team challenge is to read a locked room mystery. There are 2 definitions of this, so it doesn't matter which one you satisfy. The first definition is that there's a murder in a locked room and you have no idea how it happened, and the book kind of unfolds and explains that. And the second one is that there's a group of people who are stuck in some isolated location with like a murderer, and they're just kind of getting picked off or something like that, and you have to figure out which one of them is the bad guy.
So whichever one works. The new team book is The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas.
And the old team book is Murder on the Red River by Marcy R. Rendon. The next team is Team Contemporary Literary Historical Fiction.
The first team challenge is Then and Now, so to read a book with dual timelines or multiple timelines.
And the second team challenge is to read a book featuring a vacation or a trip.
The new team book is What Strange Paradise by Omar El-Akkad.
And the old team book is The Whale Rider by Witi Ihi Myra. Right?
Yeah.
And then the last team is Team Nonfiction Poetry.
The first team challenge is to read a novel in verse.
And the second team challenge is to read a book about untold stories.
The new team book is Dear Senturan, a Black spirit memoir by Akweke Emezi.
And the old team book is Ink Knows No Borders, It's an anthology edited by Patrice Vecchione and Alyssa Raymond. Okay, we're going to talk about recommendations.
Yeah. So we have a link up on the webpage for the readathon that has recommendations for all the challenges. So not the alternate prompts, but just the specific trope challenges themselves. So it's kind of, if you're not sure and you want to kind of look at what are some possible books you could read for each of the challenges, we have, I think, 4 books up for each challenge. So these are books that we read and we liked, or the books that we're interested in looking into reading.
Yeah. And then we'll also be posting our TBR at some point. So
yeah, we'll be posting our TBR, and other people will be posting their TBRs. So that's another good place. So just ask people randomly on Twitter.
Yeah. Or in our Discord, which we also have. We'll talk about it a bit more later.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about a website that we run. It's called booktriggerwarnings.com, and it provides exactly what you think it does. It provides trigger warnings or content warnings for books, but it also provides information like what kind of representation is in the book, what kind of tropes are in the book, and that's kind of why we're mentioning it. Because if you want to find other recommendations that aren't in our list, you can go to BTW and you can search for the trope that you're looking for and see what pages have that trope listed. And of course, if you are someone who likes to look at content and trigger warnings before you read a book, you can look it up on there. There's over 5,000 books currently on there, so there's a good chance that it's already there if you want to look it up.
And then also for the team books that we have, we're going to, so for the old team books, we're going to read them and add trigger warnings ourselves. For the new ones, we'll look at people who have read them, like on Goodreads or stuff that have posted some, and see if we can add those as well to the site.
Yeah, and it is a wiki. So if you want to add any warnings or representation or tropes to books that you know, or if you see a book is totally missing and you want to add the page for that, all you need to do is create an account, which is just username and password. It doesn't have to have any personal information or anything like that.
Yep. So please come join us and make it a bigger, better website.
Yeah. Okay. So registration. We're going to talk about registration for a bit because we have to talk about how usernames go into the updating your points process before we talk about points.
Yeah, so there'll be our registration link on the webpage, and so you go there and it'll ask you for a username. So this is just some username you provide that will be unique to help track your points, and that you'll provide every time you update, so that we can know who read the pages, who got the points.
Yeah, so make sure it's not something that you think somebody else will have. So like I wouldn't want to make my username Jenny because there could be other Jennys who want to make their username Jenny. So make sure it is unique.
Yeah. And so the registration form will ask you for your username, and the team you want, and kind of way to contact you. So in case there's some question about an update, or if you won one of the giveaways. We're not giving away getaways, but we are giving away books as part of the readathon. So something, just tell us like DM me at Twitter at this ad, or email me at this email, and that'll give us a way to contact you in case there's any questions.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've talked about the username, we can talk about our point system. So each team has a different number of members, so we calculate points based on average points. We don't count people who haven't updated yet, so if you have a bunch of people sign up for your team and they don't end up participating, they won't get counted, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And then there's 4 different ways to make points. So the first way is to...
the first way is to complete a common challenge, so that is 50 points each.
Yeah, so 50 points per challenge, and then there's 2 team challenges. Each of those team challenges, if you accomplish the challenge, you get 100 points each.
And then the team books, each team book that you read, again, max 1 per team for this amount of points, is 150 points each.
Yeah, so the max you can get is if you read all 16 books.
16 books.
16 books?
It's like 16 books.
Yep, 16. Okay. All 16 books, so 1 team book from each team. That'll give you 6 books, 150 points each, so 900 points already for that.
And then the last way to get points is per page. So there's 1 point per page. Any book that you read during this readathon counts for that. It doesn't matter if it's a short story or a graphic novel or anything like that. Anything counts for the 1 point per page. In order to count a book for a challenge, however, it has to be at least a novella or up. the, like, I don't know, official.
It's just the Hugo Awards
Okay.
defines a novella to be at least 17,500 words. So anything that's like kind of more than that, but you can use your judgment on what kind of a novella is. And so anything novella or above is something that you can use to count as a challenge. But you can't like read a short story about time loops and say, oh, I read the time loop thing. You can read an anthology about time loop short stories, and then that can count. But yeah, so for a challenge, it's something that's at least novella in size, but kind of anything you read, every page you read can count for a point. So even if it's a book that you're just randomly reading, like unrelated to any challenges, that counts. If it's a book that you started and DNF'd, you can still count every page that you read for a point.
Yeah, you can't count it for the challenge though if you DNF the book. You can still count the point per page. And then of course you can listen to audiobooks if that's your thing. The only thing is that if you want to do the point per page, you would use the Goodreads count for that. You can do this with mathing. So if you've listened to 20% of the book, you can do 20% times the total amount that Goodreads lists to say that you've read that many pages. But some people just prefer to not have to do that math and to just update at the end when they finish the book.
Yeah, our updating process is kind of fairly flexible. And so, I like to update, at least once a day just to know my progress. But some people just like to update, every time they finish a book, it's like, oh, I read this book and I read this many, and it has this many pages, there's my update.
Yeah, so it's totally flexible. Just remember that every time you update, to only update what you've done since the last time you update. Don't accumulate your points because that'll mess up the system. Okay, so yeah, to update your points, the link is on the website. You click on it, it brings you to a calendar of August, and you click on the day that you're updating, and
so it'll ask you for your usernames. This is why it's important to pick a good username that's unique and to remember your username. So it'll ask you for your username and how many pages you've read since the last update, and what challenges you've accomplished since the last update, and what, if any, team books you've accomplished since the last update. It'll also ask you, like, oh, if you've accomplished a challenge, like what book was it? That's kind of more just for fun to know. It's not really something
we're not but being creepy. We just like to know what kind of books are out there.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll talk about reading sprints. So if you don't know what reading sprints are, it's when there's a host and the host says, let's get together and read for some set amount of time, and you read together. It's a way to kind of build camaraderie and like accountability in trying to get people to read together.
Yeah, sometimes you sit down, you're like, I'm going to read, and you pick up your phone, you doom scroll for 2 hours. So instead, this is 2 hours you can spend on Twitter, where people are like oh, in 5 minutes we're going to read for 20 minutes. So let's just like put everything down and just get some 20 minutes of reading done. And then, some hosts in the breaks will, kind of ask questions like, oh, like, what book are you liking? What's your character like? What's your favorite character in this book? Or maybe play some games.
Yeah, so there's things like Mad Libs where they'll say, we're going to read for 20 minutes, pick a noun, and tell me your noun. And then at the end, they'll read out the Mad Lib that you made together. Or there's...
and it will be funny.
Hopefully. And there's also other games like points, like give yourself a point every time, I don't know, food is mentioned, or every time a person's name starts with the letter T, I don't know, random stuff like that.
But yeah, just kind of meant to, as you said, like camaraderie, just kind of getting together and reading together.
Yeah. If you want to apply to be a sprint host, you can do so at the link that I'll include in the description below, but it's also listed on the announcement post on my blog.
Yeah, so we get people to help us out with hosting the sprints, because we try to, we're in the US, but then, people will be in Europe and Japan and Australia, wherever, and we try to...
Or other places in the US.
Or other places in the US. And then, then we'll have maybe 8 or so people hosting, and they can host over various times. So they kind of, at any time of day, there might be sprints at that time, even while we're asleep.
So we're trying to make it as accessible all around the world as possible. So if you don't get picked for a sprint host, it's just because of your availability or your time zone. It just means that other people are available when you're available.
But yeah, so if you're interested in that, check out the forum. It'll kind of, will ask you for your name and some questions and your availability, your time zone, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Giveaways?
Giveaway.
Okay, so we have 2 giveaways for a total of 3 winners. Or as Rob likes to say, we're all winners, but there's 3 people who will win a free book.
There'll be more winners.
There'll be winners.
There be winners, yes. Read a book with a winner in it. Yeah, so the giveaway will be from Book Depository, so $30 max, and so as long as Book Depository ships to your country, you can win. So the first giveaway.
Yeah, the first giveaway is called our TBR giveaway, and it's to share your TBR, partial, full, whatever. You can change your TBR at any point. We're not trying to hold you to that. We personally are pretty bad at doing that. Rob's worse at doing it than I am, but yeah. So the way you enter that is to just share your TBR. It can be on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, your blog, whatever. If it's on one of the things that we're on, you can tag us in it, or if it's not, you can DM us the link. Just make sure that you tell us what the username is that you signed up under for the readathon, so that we don't miss you or double count you if you share it on multiple mediums.
Yeah, it's just kind of, there'll be like, say, 100 people posting their TBR, and just we need to kind of keep track of what it is, and so help us out.
Yeah. And that giveaway will end on August 8th at 11:59 p.m. U.S. Central, because that's where we currently are.
Yeah, that's also the deadline for the registration, so it's just like the end of the Sunday at the end of the first week of the readathon.
Yeah. The second giveaway?
Second giveaway. It's me. So the second giveaway is going to be at the end of the month, and it's going to be so 2 people, and it's just based on kind of who's participated. So by participated, we just kind of mean anyone who's had at least 500 points. So kind of if you read a book that satisfies the challenge, that's pretty much about 500 points. But yeah, so kind of out of those people, we just pick a winner randomly, and then we also pick another winner specifically from the winning team. So there's a small incentive to be on the winning team and to help your team win.
Okay, so the last thing we'll talk about is the links that are available. So if you've already watched all of this, you probably don't care that you can also read it, but you can read it at our announcement post on my blog, gengenreviews.wordpress.com. If you go to that blog, you'll click where it says Tropical Readathon info, and it brings you to the announcement post. And on the very top of the announcement post is a bunch of links to basically everything you'll need for the readathon.
Yeah, so the first link is the registration we've kind of talked about, so that'll bring you to like a Google form. It'll ask you some questions. Then there's the update your points link, which will bring you to, kind of like we said, a calendar of the days, and you can click on one of the days, and that day will be a Google form as well. There's the leaderboard link, so the leaderboard is that'll give you let you peer into our little spreadsheet that we have, and it'll show kind of so for each team the number of points it has and a few other statistics, so you can keep track of which team is in the lead, and it also shows the biggest contributor to each team.
Yeah. And then there's also the FAQ, so frequently asked questions. That's a place that has questions that we asked ourselves when we were first making this readathon back in the day.
A year ago.
Was it only a year ago? Was it 2019? 2020?
This is only the third one.
Hot dang. Okay. So not that far back in the day. But yeah, questions we asked ourselves when we were making the readathon, and questions that other people have asked us. Basically all of them are answered in this video and in the post. It's just a good place to have them all kind of succinctly in one place, so that it's
reiterate
easier.
Things
to find things. So it's questions like, what can I count for a challenge? Can I read outside my genre? Yes. I don't know. What do I do if I forgot what I updated? Things like that.
Stuff like that. Yeah. There's also a link for the recommended books that we mentioned. So for each, as we said, for each challenge, there's some recommended books. And there's a link to our Twitter account, which is at Tropical Reads, and a link to our Discord. So on the Discord, it's a place that you can join. You can kind of just join, tell us what team you're on. We can sort you into teams, and so each team has its own little chat channel that you can talk to each other in. Every team book will have its own channel, so that if you've read the book, then you can go in there and see if anyone's talking about it, kind of like a book club type thing if you want.
There's a reading sprint channel, so if you are not a host but still would like to host some with people in the Discord, you can do that as well.
There's a channel for posting your TBR.
There's a channel for posting your TBR. I think it's also maybe like a book recommendation channel, or maybe we do that in the general chat. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
and
just
there's
a good place to interact
announcement
with.
channel where we post important stuff if you've missed it on Twitter.
Yeah, but yeah, then it's just like a cool place to kind of chat with people who are part of the readathon and get to meet people.
And then as of making this video, there's not a link to our Instagram, but we do have an Instagram. I might add it before you watch this, but it's the same username as our Twitter at Tropical Reads on Instagram. And then the last link that's there is the participant list. So this is super important if you forget your username or you even think that you might have forgotten your username.
Yeah, so you know, when we're updating, when you send in an update, you use your username, and that shows up in some spreadsheet that we have. And so if you've got that wrong, then like it doesn't really count your points. And so we do some work to try to reconcile these things. But it helps if you know, it helps us if you get it right. And so yeah, I mean, so like for instance, like I'm signed up as BookRob 13, but like I might have also signed up as @BookRob 13. And sometimes like people forget which one they chose, or sometimes they'll, you know, someone will sign up with their Twitter handle but update with their Instagram accidentally. And so that won't get connected until we kind of reconcile and figure out that there was a mistake.
So sometimes it's really easy to figure out what someone's username was supposed to be, but sometimes it's really hard and we end up spending a lot of time trying to figure out who this person is. And so if you just get your username right the first time, it's a lot of help to us.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's a good place to check.
Yeah, so if you click on if you click on it, then it brings you to a list of the teams. If you click on the team, it brings you to a list of the people on that team in alphabetical order.
We manually update the list, so it's not like when you sign up, you'll just like magically appear there. We kind of, at the beginning, we'll update it, you know. It'd be cool. I'll work on it. But yeah, so we'll try to update it, you know, fairly frequently at the beginning. But yeah.
And I think that...
And there's a link to this video if you want to watch it again.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yep.
But so, yeah, so this is, we hope that everyone will come and join and have some fun. You know, there is like a small element of competition, but it's really mainly just meant to have some fun and get to meet some people who are reading books and see everything that's happening and do a little dance.
So if you have any questions, you can leave a comment below. You can DM us on Twitter or on Instagram. You can message us on the Discord. You can email us at tropicalreads@gmail.com if you really want to. All those are available.
Yep. All right. Is it time to say bye now?
Bye.
Bye. Maybe let's wait until she's